buying a franchise, having this stuff all figured out is exactly what you're paying the money for. Right? These are the systems that when business owners figure it out, their business is completely scalable. And then some people decide, like, heck, now that I've figured it all out, wouldn't it be nicer if other people just ran every location and I'll just sell the system I figured out? You owe it to yourself to figure out your own franchise model. And I like thinking about it like that. This is right out of the E-Myth, Michael Gerber, right? 25-year-old book. And then you figure out what your way is. So, so for us, it's the EOS way. That's our franchise model for how we duplicate this success from company to company and delivering what we deliver. But you figure out what the way is for your business, and this is part of the way, is figuring out what there is to measure. And you're constantly ripping this thing apart and redoing it and getting better at predicting your future. Okay? So that's scorecard. If you're filling in the pie on the front of it, the second thing to put in under scorecard is measurables. Sorry, I flipped forward past that slide. This is a slide, this is a cheat sheet kind of slide, but because I put those two slips in behind there, I figured you'd use those for cheat sheets if you didn't have ideas. Getting sales and marketing and finance activities to measure are the easy ones. Figuring out what you want from ops is the harder one. Start with your ops outcome and work yourself backwards. And you'll figure out things along the line that you can measure that are activity-based. So the second thing on data is measurables. And that goes to the thing I was talking about with the smoked globes, that if people understand that what they're doing, even some small aspect of what they're doing, is being measured and rolled up into the company scorecard, and the leadership team is looking at it weekly, and it's being shared transparently with the whole company, they will work harder, they'll care more. The right people, anyway, will care more. You might run into people that resist being measured for some dysfunctional reason, then those people should go work somewhere else. And mostly, the measurables is that the solid psychology is that people are at their best when things have a little light shine on them. I know I'm a better guy because of being married and being a father. It just shines a little light on all of my choices, and I end up being a better guy. More of my stuff is transparent and on a personal side, transparent and measured now than it was when I was a single guy running around for 2 decades. So get your measurement going on. When you have these 3 pieces of the puzzle, right, everybody's aligned about where we're going and how we're getting there, and especially what's going on the next 90 days. We'll touch on a little bit more. Right people, right seats, and then you get the scorecard going on. The good people will they'll have a lot of issues when you tighten this up. They're going to say, okay, that's fine. If it's going to be more transparent, I'm going to be more accountable. We're going to be more clear about what we're all up to. Fantastic. I just have some obstacles, barriers, and problems I need the leadership team to decide on. That's completely normal. The bad people are going to start looking for the exits, the posers, the people that have been hiding. And my message to them is go hide somewhere at a big company. There's lots of places to hide at a big company. Yeah, there's not as many places to hide here, especially now, because we're shining all these bright lights and getting more transparent about things. So the good people, they're going to come up with issues. There's 2 tools here. The first one is that you have an issues list. That as a leadership team, you have one list, and so you can write this on the wheel at the front. There's not a separate page for it, but if you're filling in on that wheel on the very front, that you as a leadership team keep one running list of all your issues. It's in one place. And everybody knows it's not going to get lost, because in your leadership team meetings, you go off on tangents all the time because somebody thinks, we need to talk about this right now. And if they have confidence that there's one master list and you're building it during your weekly meeting, oh, okay, I'll put it on the issues list. I'll drop it down. I'll put it on the issues list. Okay, great. Can we just not talk about that right now? Let's put it on the list. We'll prioritize later, and maybe that's when we'll talk about today. But that you have one master list and stuff doesn't get lost or fall off this list without the leadership team knowing about it. So I can let go and be in the other conversation if I know you captured my concern on that list, because I need that talked about sometime. The second piece, and the more difficult piece, is IDS. It stands for Identify, Discuss, and Solve. IDS, and we identify the root of issues, we discuss them in a healthy way, and then drive to a solution. I'll assert that most businesses that don't succeed or stall or get stuck are not stuck because they made the wrong decision. They're stuck because they didn't decide. They put off decisions. I'll also assert that if you make just 80% of the best decision quickly, you will succeed more than the perfect choice made later. That it's about being in action, and often waiting until, let's gather more data, maybe we need more market research, or maybe we need the details from finance before we decide. This tendency to want to gather more data, to have all the data to make the perfect choice, sometimes is about absolving yourselves of responsibility as a leadership team. You know what? The good news and the bad news about being a leadership team is that you get to, it's all your responsibility. You get to take full success credit and full failure credit. It rests with you. These tools are an operating system, just like Windows or Linux or Mac is to your computer. You spend 2 to 5% of your time dealing with the operating system on your computer, and the whole rest of the time you spend on the programs, the applications, the things where you're actually getting stuff done. None of us would ever consider, oh, let's go out and write our own operating system because that's going to make my laptop more effective if I spend energy doing that, right? Their operating systems are already figured out. This is the same for running a leadership team. This is an operating system that is time-tested and figured out. Stop spending energy trying to figure out your own operating system. It's sometimes avoiding doing the hard work of making decisions and being with your customers and being with your employees and being with your vendors. Those are the applications running on top of this. You should be spending 3 to 5% of your energy as a team worrying about these underlying systems for how to be a team and how to be transparent and accountable, and spend all the rest of your energy with your customers, your vendors, and your employees. That's where they've got stuff to do. Don't reinvent the underlying systems when other people have already done it. So I'm going to talk about issues a little bit. So it's identify, discuss, and solve, because it's a tricky one. Did you have a question? Sorry. Yeah. So what I said, he was asking to repeat the decision-making thing, is that I believe that if you make a decision that's 80% perfect and you make it quickly and you get in action quickly, you will win more often than the team of people that waits till they have all the data and they make a 100% perfect choice, but they made it 2 months later. It's much more about action with the best information you have at the time than it is about, oh, let's defer the responsibility for making a decision, and because we're really scared to make a decision, we're going to gather more data. It's a little bit of a disease within some organizations. And I'll assert also, I believe that the reason that people seek to gather more and more data is they don't want to take responsibility for deciding. And guess what? As a leader, one of your jobs is just to decide. If you have the perfect data every time, we don't need a leader. We don't even need an above-average smart person to make decisions if you have all the perfect data. It's common sense. We'll get a 6th grader. They can make the decisions at your company. But the reality is you don't have perfect data. And so you have to make decisions in the absence of perfect data, and just make them quickly. The data is not going to get better 2 months later. It's usually then you're making a decision 2 months later with imperfect data. Just decide stuff. And discuss it in a healthy way. Beat it up a lot. Try to attack it from all angles. Do that normal stuff that you do. So on the identify, discuss, and solve, where companies screw this up all the time is they start solving the symptoms of issues before they spend time on the identify. And then they discuss and discuss and discuss, and they don't get to a decision. They don't solve stuff. What I want to do, and this is some stuff that is new, it's an EO program. It's called an AFS, Advanced Forum Series. Remember, I've been doing the forum training stuff. So this is so embedded. IDSing is very similar to the coaching that happens before a forum presentation. And this stuff that I have up here is stuff that I took from the EO AFS program. There's a new one that's coming out on coaching, and I think it's brilliant. It's the best work that I've seen around getting to the root of an issue. As a leadership team, you'll make this list. Your list will have 137 issues on it. If you're a normal team, that you'll just capture everything that's possibly an issue, every meeting you're in every week, and you've got this one master list. Well, you need to identify, so you prioritize and you pick 1, 2, and 3. What are the most important things on there for you to talk about that week? And you're going to start with number 1 and say, okay, who put it on the list? And the question, this is the things that you do as a leadership team, or if you're coaching a forum presentation. But you quiet your mind. Our minds are racing all the time. A lot of it's ego-driven stuff. We have answers. We want to be seen as smart. We want to say, hey, can I talk now? So you quiet your mind, get your stuff, stop racing forward. Why is he wearing a green shirt? Is there another plane going to take off soon? You know, all that stuff your brain does when it's supposed to be doing something else. So you quiet that down. Reflecting back is where the person tells you what it is, and you reflect back. So let me see if I heard this correctly. Is it this? And this is a leadership team skill. It doesn't have to just happen in your leadership team with all your direct reports. I am shocked, especially if I don't quiet my mind, how I'll have heard something different than what they think they said. And I'll reflect it back and say, so if I heard correctly, this is the issue. And they'll say, no, not exactly. It was kind of like that, but this is what I'm saying. And I say, oh, okay, so I get it. So it's like this. And they say, almost, it's like this. And so you can do that multiple times, and that's how you get mutual understanding. You have to communicate. Don't jump to the conclusion that you heard what they said. And then you investigate. Once you've said, okay, I get what you're saying, now investigate is where you ask the open-ended, non-leading questions. Well, why is that? You know, the 5 whys is the most famous of the approaches, but you say, why is that? Tell me more about that. What is it that stresses you out the most? What has you losing sleep? What worries you? What concerns you? What excites you? That's open-ended and non-leading questions, and while you're asking, well, why is it? Why is it? What's underneath this? What's the real root of it? Cut to the chase. Call shit shit. What are you really saying? When you're doing that, the way that you recognize if you've got to a more guttural root kind of issue, like where you're past symptoms, is you recognize body language and tone. You listen for powerful words and metaphors, repetition and amplification. You know, somebody getting louder and saying the same thing over again, like, this is really what it is. Sometimes swear words, right? A change in the way that they're representing it, a change in their body language, contradictions and discrepancies. They said something at the beginning of it, and now they're saying something that's a little bit different than that. And then how are you feeling about this? And there's a perfectly appropriate place inside business, inside leadership team meetings, to be talking about the effect and the impact and the feeling of all this. What's the real issue here? And you'll find that if you pay attention to these things as you're investigating as a team, you'll get to the root of things more often, and then you focus it for discussion. This is where you move on to the D, and then you discuss it. Don't let yourself move on as a team and start discussing what you think is the issue before you've gotten to this, before you've taken it at least one layer deeper. During this investigate part, you're going from the story, right? Because there's stuff that happens, and then we all make up stories about what happened, and then we tell the story to ourselves, and we believe our story. And so there's the facts, and then there's the meaning we placed on it, the story we created about it. And in this process, you're trying to get past the story to the inner struggle that the person is having with their issue. In this context, we're talking about issues at work as a leadership team. But you've got a story you made up. This happened in that department, and this thing happened, and that person did that, and that caused that, and this, and this, and that, and you got a whole story. And we don't need the whole story during the leadership team meeting. Mostly, I don't want half the story. What I want to know is what's most important to you. What's underneath it? What's the real issue? And if getting from the story to the inner struggle is language that helps this, you get clear on what I'm talking about, that's why I share it. Around forum, when you're coaching a forum presentation, going from the story the person has made up about what they think their issue is to their inner struggle is exactly what you're up to when coaching a forum presentation. And it's those presentations that address the inner struggle the person's having, not the story, that change lives and make big permanent sweeping differences. Okay? So, but for this, quiet the mind, reflect.